So just when you think you're ready to go on power tour, you realize something's leaking, something's broken, something's missing, and something's rubbing. So I'm back at it again. The Camaro's in the garage. I got parts laid out all over this place, and I got a lot of work ahead of me. It's about 20 days till power tour, so it's going to be a little bit tight, but we'll get it done. Stay tuned. All right, so a new list has been made. Gotta love these things. There's a lot of stuff on here. Control arm bushings, fixed cowl leak, power steering pump, tighten parking brake. Yeah, okay. That means there's a lot of work ahead of us. So let me show you what I've gotten done so far, and then we'll start knocking out this list. So I finally found my leak, and it's coming in right where that cowl kick panel sits. So that has to be dealt with. Next is the weather stripping. So I already removed it. I just got to clean it with some acetone. There's a couple bare metal spots that I'll probably throw some primer down on. But yeah, it was in really bad shape. Let me show you. I would say it's time to replace that. So there's the new weather stripping. And of course I decided to paint the trunk. Alright, so I don't even know why I'm surprised at this point, but just removing the 3 tires, I already ran into another 3 issues that I'm going to have to deal with. So issue number 1, that decided to cross-thread itself somehow as I was removing it. Issue number 2, this is what it should look like. And this is what it looks like on the driver's side. Alright, so issue number 3, that got cross-threaded by somebody. Either it was done at the tire shop that I took this car to, so I finally got it to move. I just put an impact on there and I sat and waited for about 45 seconds. And I got it to this point. So it's ready to come out, but it still won't come out, dude. Am I in the twilight zone? I finally got this thing loose. But yeah, this thread is completely garbage at this point. Alright, so I got this piece off. I just gotta go to the store and get another one of these. Wow, yeah, this is something. Look at that. I took out the cotter pin for the upper ball joint here, and I loosened the nut a tiny bit, and I should be able to take a sledge and smack the side of this and release this ball joint. There we go. I'm going to take this jack, and I'm going to jack this area up. Okay. There we go. Okay. So now I have access to the control arm. Alright, so the next step is removing that A-arm. That should be fun. Remove this crap. So I got a lot torn apart right now, and I'm slowly going to start putting things back together. As far as the control arm goes, I got the shaft out. I still have to beat out one of the bushings, and all these pieces got a one-way ticket to the blasting cabinet. I got everything pressed on. As far as this control arm goes, it was somewhat of a nightmare. Basically what you have to do is you have to put all the stuff in where it's going to sit, and then you have to brace this area and you have to brace this area. Then you want to throw it on a press and then press all the stuff together. By the way, when you go to remove the A-arm, you are going to have to remove the steering shaft. So that was in the way. Alright, so here we go. Get this guy in there. Yay, no more danger. Well, that's definitely it. As far as the rotor goes, new bearing races were installed. After I installed the races, I packed the bearings, and here we are. I got the power steering pump off, pulled off the pulley, and I'm going to start slapping those brackets onto this new power steering pump. If any of you guys are thinking about installing a new pump and you already own the March pulley system or thinking about buying it, the one thing you guys are going to have to do is take out a corner of that right there. So take a Dremel or take a file to it and just knock down that corner. If you don't get rid of this, the other bracket that's attached to your water pump, it will hit this point, and ultimately you'll never be able to tighten up the belt. Okay, that should be enough, but I will double check it just to make sure. That's the section that I removed. If I wouldn't have removed that, that would have stopped right around here. What this lets me do is it lets me go even higher up with it. Well, why is that important? Well, this adjustment here is what tightens your belt. So at this point, I got a couple washers that I got to stuff back here, and I actually have to attach these two pieces together. Then we can press on the pulley and get it all hooked back up and go from there. All right, so I'm working on the rear shocks and found another shocking backyard mechanic trick here. So let me show you the hardware that was used to mount this. On this side, you had this bolt. And on the left side, you had that. So yeah, nice spacer there, buddy. I got the new shocks in, but they are, for some reason, too short. The solution would be to buy two of these extensions. And what they do is you just basically thread them in. Try to cross thread them like I am. Yeah, nothing simple. So I don't know if you can see that gigantic glob of paint on there that I'm going to have to remove before I actually screw this extension in. All right, let's try this again. I removed that glob of paint off of this thing. So what this does, when you screw this piece on, it adds another 2 inches to your shock. So the new shocks are installed. The main reason why I did that is you see these marks? The tire was rubbing right in here. All right, let's get this oil leak out of the way. These 4 inner bolts, oil is seeping through the threads and pooling up in these areas. And then ultimately when I get on the gas, all this drips back and hits my headers down there. So yeah, it's a fun, smelly situation. When I originally put this intake on, I put thread sealant on all these guys, but I guess either that wore off or it just wasn't enough. So I've been using good old red. All right, so this might be overkill, but I'm tired of having this intake leak on me. Guess we can knock one thing off the list. As far as the stud goes, I gotta run over to Winter Circle tomorrow and pick up another one of those. I really love all these YouTube videos where they're installing new wheel studs and they make it look completely effortless. Well, I'm guessing that they never tried to install Moroso studs into a Mosier axle. The axle hole is 453 thousandths of an inch, and the knurl on these is 480 thousandths. The first way I tried it was by freezing this bolt, and then I got all my stuff ready. I went to throw the bolt through with a little bit of WD-40, and I got it to press about halfway, and it wasn't having it at that point. That's when I pulled out the impact, and it did that. So I destroyed this one, so that's garbage. Which brings me to today. This time, I cleaned up the hole a lot better than I did the first time. Once again, I froze the bolt. Then I put high temperature bearing grease on the bolt and in the hole, and I started cranking down on it. What I'm doing is I'm putting a couple of washers in here, and I'm putting this installation tool and then throwing this lug nut on. So with all those washers on there, by hand, with a wrench and a pipe, I start cranking down on this thing. So this one, I got it to go almost completely all the way through. Then towards the end, the last 1/32 of an inch, this happened. So yeah, I have one more try, which is gonna be tomorrow. And I'm going to do everything that I just did, except I'm going to heat up the flange before I drop the frozen bolt in. If that still doesn't work, I'm going to have to pull these axles. As far as this list goes, the control arm bushings, I'm just waiting to drop the car so I can tighten those up. But a lot of this stuff is done. And some of it is already partially started. So here we are. I need to throw the air cleaner on there. I need to tighten up that control arm. The new power steering pump is already in. I'm sure I'm going to run into a couple more issues once I get this thing on the ground and take it for a test drive. I mean, that's just the Cursemaro way. But it's looking good so far, besides that stubborn lug bolt. What else did I get done? I finally got my vents back on there. I got all my rubber pieces on the hood back on there. Oh, I forgot to mention, Power Tour is about 6 days away. It's really never ending with this car, but hopefully, you know, in the 6 days that I have left, I can get this thing in order, I can do a test drive, make sure it's sound and good to go, and then we can get on the road to Power Tour, which will be a first for this car and for me. So it should be a pretty cool adventure. So here's round 3. Guess what? I got it in! April Fools. I got it in partially, once again. So, guess what this turns into? This turns into round 4. Yup, I'm having to pull the frickin' axles out. Round 4 successfully worked. It had to be pressed in. So, word of advice. If you have a pair of Moser axles and the holes are 453 thousandths of an inch, you are going to have to press those in. There's no other way to do it. All I have left is just putting the rear axle back together, throwing the cover on it, putting some fluid in there, and hopefully at some point tonight we'll be able to put a tire on here and this thing will be sitting on all fours. Alright, this is finally done. Oh, this feels so good. Alright, yeah, okay, I feel better now. So this car is finally sitting on all fours, and hopefully in the next hour, once I tighten a couple things up, especially the suspension down there, I should be able to take this thing for a cruise. So I'm finally at that point where all the major repairs are done on this thing, and at this point it's just a matter of starting it up and going for a test drive and see if there's any other types of issues that I'm going to run into, because I still have 5 days before I got to leave for Power Tour. So yeah, let's get this thing started and see what happens.